Hey guys, what's up? Vicarious Nick here, and today we're going to be talking about, in my opinion, the most underrated game of 2022. So let's get right into it. If you haven't heard of RidersRepublic, just stop the video right now and do yourself a favor, go buy it and give it a chance. It's on sale right now as of today, which is March 24th, 2022. It's on sale half off on the Ubisoft store. So that is on PC. I don't necessarily know if it's on sale on console, but I got the PC version here and I decided to go out on a whim, try it out, and I am more than glad that I did, and I would easily pay full price for this game. So in this video, it's essentially an overview, but I'm going to treat it like a review. So we're going to start out with the graphics, then we're going to get into the features and the events of the game, the map, and the story. And then, of course, the overall verdict on if I think you guys should go out and buy it, which obviously I've already told you to do so. So starting out with the graphics, I think the best part of the graphics for this game is the lighting. I think they absolutely killed it with the lighting, where you can see the cascading shadows from the trees around you on your own player model, as well as the different shifts of time of day, from morning to dusk to night to midday. It looks great. The lighting of this game truly sets it apart from others that I've seen in the sports category. It has a great sense of detail with a lot of its environments, its snow particles, its gravel, and really anything that you're running across on a snowboard, ski, bike, or really just walking. From time to time, I'm not gonna lie, my breath was taken away from some of the views that you can see in this game. Like going on top of a mountaintop and looking down across the entire valley while seeing other skiers and snowboarders cascading down a mountain, just you can't beat it. It truly is a beautiful looking game from time to time. I also really like that it does look modern while at the same time having a little bit of a cartoonish vibe to it, but in the end I really like what they went with. I'm glad it wasn't too over the top cartoonish, and I don't think going extremely realistic would have been the right play either. There is some occasional pop-in issues from time to time. Again, I am running this on PC with ultra graphics. I have a 2070 Super graphics card, and it seems to run just fine in terms of performance. And that being said, the performance of this game is top-notch. I mean, easily getting 120 frames per second, pretty much steady. And I only had the game crash on me once, which I would probably chalk that up to a Windows 11 error because I get random crashes from all the time. So performance-wise, especially for PC, is really well optimized. Well, the only gripe I can really give to the game for its graphics is that some of the details are a bit lacking in terms of texture quality if you are to look at them really closely. Now, in most cases, you're not even going to notice this, especially if you're like me that just jump in, do a couple races here and there, have a good time, and then jump back out. But if you do take your time around the world and you are a sightseer, from time to time you might run into a tree or look at a rock and be like, yeah, that could have been a little bit more detailed. But again, for the most part, and especially the sense of speed you're going to see in this game, it looks really good. Moving on to the features and events, this is the main meat and potatoes of the game. So the biggest thing, in my opinion, with RidersRepublic is the seamless transition between biking, snowboarding, skiing, flying, driving/snowmobiling, all within a GTA style wheel selection, which is super cool. And it literally is seamless. Like, there's no loading screen. It doesn't stop your flow of momentum. Like, you can literally go from a jetpack flying across the sky, and then on your descent back to Earth, you can transform into a bicycle and then hit a ramp going 50 miles an hour. It's insane, and it is a lot of fun. And I think this is the best feature for the game because even if you're not in an event at the moment, you can still have a great time just roaming around the map, just doing random crazy stunts and just exploring. Because again, with this seamless transition from any type of these sports right on the get-go without a loading screen, it is a really remarkable experience that you just have to experience for yourself. The events you will encounter across the campaign range from standard races, time trials, to trick contests, and these wacky side events called funkies. Every event does give you XP towards better equipment, and the equipment has different stats, which I find really cool, but it can also be a hindrance because in games like these, when you unlock better equipment as you go, the early equipment you get on just ends up being useless because you're never going to want to use a snowboard or a ski set or a bike that's a level 1 compared to like a level 100 that you get later on in the game. It just doesn't make any sense, and which sucks because you can't really actually upgrade or change the look of these bikes or skis or snowboards or anything. So if there's one that you like the look of, but the stats just aren't that good, you're going to end up pretty much never using it again, which again is a big bummer. I wish there was a way maybe to turn that off if you just like to play with where it's based off cosmetics and not necessarily its skill level, but that sadly is not a choice. The sense of speed while you're going down a mountain or on a racetrack or just doing some crazy jumps through a half pipe is really well done. Like, honestly, it really brought me back to the good old days of Downhill Domination on PS2, if you guys know that game. If you don't, I apologize. You missed out on a great experience as a child like I did, but just saying, that game was amazing and always gave a really good sense of speed for just being on a BMX bike or a mountain bike for that matter. And this game is no slouch in that department. You feel like you are going 100 miles an hour, even though in reality you may only hit a top speed of 75. It makes you feel like you're going faster than that, and it does give you that sense of danger you would have in real life going down a steep mountainside with maybe some slick traction here and there. So yeah, the sense of speed, it could not have been any better. The trick system is also pretty complicated at first and took a little bit to get used to, in my opinion, but once you do, it's extremely fun to master. They do also give you 3 different types of control variations, from Racer, Trickster, and Steep, which Steep was their previous game that was a pretty big success, and they borrowed a lot of what made Steep good and brought it over to RidersRepublic, but then just added so much more content and made the gameplay more accessible to novice and maybe less experienced sports players like myself. So I like that they give you different options when it comes to the control scheme. My personal favorite is the Trickster variant, which essentially uses the analog sticks to do all your tricks and spins, but there is different variations like the Racer, for instance, where it gives you more control on maybe your camera, and you can get more directional control with your bike on the ground or your snowboard on the ground. But then when you're in the air, use the square and circle, I'm playing with a PlayStation controller, to spin essentially instead of using the analog stick. And then the Steep is just like the exact same controls from the game Steep, which I never really played, so I didn't really have any experience with that one, so I just figured no really reason for me to use it. So again, I've been sticking with Trickster, and it seems to get the job done, but it is a little bit difficult to get used to at the beginning because your mind kind of gets entwined with, okay, the right stick is how I jump and then spin my body. My left stick does alter your position a little bit for landing, but other than that, the left stick is mostly used for the direction of which type of trick you're going to hold by holding the L2 or the R2 buttons down simultaneously. So I can't really get into all of it in this video because it is pretty complicated, but once you get it down, it's a lot of fun. And I also like that they do give you the option to do auto landing or manual landing, and that also goes for grinding. What I mean by that is, by default, they have it on auto mode for both landing and grinding, so you don't really have to worry about overspinning or underspinning a trick and landing on your head. The obvious downside to that is it doesn't make it as fulfilling when you do land a trick because it's not your control, it's the computer doing it for you. Now that being said, you have the option to easily turn this off, which I do, and it gives you this option to try and land successful tricks, and you get an extra point advantage for landing a successful trick manually, which is really satisfying. And trust me, when you start pulling off combos and you're trying to land them specifically, well, basically perfectly every single time, it really amps up the tension throughout the race, and it keeps you more motivated to land more specialized tricks versus having it just on auto mode. If you do end up falling or crashing, you will get up without any type of animation. It kind of does like a weird little record scratch, like resetting your character. Again, it's not going for a super realistic experience, so I think this is just fine. And again, it doesn't really take you out of the experience, so it lets you keep going without losing any momentum, which I find really cool. So for instance, if you're just barreling down a mountain and you hit a tree and your body goes flying, you can instantly double tap circle and your guy resets as you're falling and will keep going. You don't actually stop in place or reset back to where you crashed. They also do give you the ability to rewind, just like in the Forza games. So if you were to mess up royally or you got stuck off track, you can hold R1 and literally rewind back to where you want to be and then hit go and start from there. I like that they give you these different options. It's not one or the other, or forcing the player to always reset when they do crash, so you can keep going with that momentum, and it does help a lot in PvP type situations. And talking about crashes and slams, they are pretty forgiving, at least on standard difficulty, and different equipment does show a huge difference in your ability to land tricks and big jumps, which I think is pretty cool to see. So in games where there's different stats for equipment, a lot of times you don't really feel a big difference between the equipment, but this game, it is night and day from sometimes when you switch between equipment that has a higher level over the other in terms of its rotation speed, its jump ability, and again, landing big tricks. So some of them have a bigger shock absorption, so if you were to go off a huge air jump, you have a better chance of surviving the fall than if you have one that doesn't have nearly as good a shock absorption, which I think is really neat. The difficulty is very well balanced in my opinion, with added challenges on every single event. Not only to add replay value to each event, but you also can earn extra rewards for actually going back and trying to 100% complete the event instead of just racing through it and getting first place every time. I think this adds extra variety to the gameplay and gives you just an added type of achievement for doing some special things throughout the run, which I think is really cool. They also do have other options for difficulty available as well, from easy, medium, hard, and then expert. So there really is literally something for everybody here. Now, most of the game is centered around a single player experience, but there is multiple multiplayer different variations. And the biggest event for multiplayer is these mass events. It's literally what they're called. They are completely insane. 65 real players in one race. You heard that right. And every single time that I've wanted to go to a mass event, I have always matched up with 65 other players. I personally haven't had an issue with getting 65 people to join in a mass race, but I have heard from other reviewers that sometimes they only were able to connect with 30 people or 25. But even then, it's still a really fun time because the mass races are 3 rounds of different types of races that include 3 variants of event types in one race. So what I mean by that is, let's say you start out snowboarding. You're all literally the same equipment, so you don't have an advantage over another player who maybe has more time in the game. You start all going downhill together, going through different obstacles, trying to reach the checkpoints until you reach one spot where it literally transforms you automatically onto a bicycle. And then you race down the mountain some more on a bike, and then it transforms you into a rocket. So then you actually have to fly through obstacles in the air to reach the final destination and get to the finish line. And these are always switched up. They're never the same exact orientation or the exact same race every time, so I like that they actually changed up in that sense. And it is 3 different rounds of races, so it's a good like 30-minute race against real people, which is a huge change up from going against NPCs. Because trust me, when you go from NPCs and you feel like you're on top of the world with beating every round to then going against real players who kick your ass and you only get like 22nd place, it really feels bad. But in a good way, a motivational way, to where you want to get better and you want to earn more stars so that you can then rank up and get better equipment and thus hopefully do a little bit better in the next mass race to come. The only downside of these events is they only show up about every 30 to 45 minutes that I've seen, at least. They're completely random when they pop up on the map, and you only have 4 minutes to get to them before the matchmaking starts and the race starts. And if you don't get there in time, it's sad, but you lost it, and you gotta wait again another 30 to 45 minutes for the next mass race to start. So that is a downside, where if you're just wanting to jump in and play for a little bit and hopefully do a mass race, you can't do that. You'd have to hopefully wait until one pops up on the map and get to it just in time. Thankfully, I didn't notice much lag when going against real players versus going against just AI characters, so that's a pretty big leg up for them, especially with 65 people in one race. I was pretty astonished not to see much lag. You will see some occasional glitching here and there, some people like flying through each other and whatnot, but they do actually have collisions, so if you run into another player, you cannot actually just go through them. They will knock you to the side or knock you off ramps, which can be frustrating at times, but overall it was more funny than not. In terms of the online connectivity as a whole, I do want to complain about a few disconnects I've had. It's really random. Like sometimes I'll just be going in free roam, not even in an event, and I'll get disconnected from the server. And if that happens, the biggest downside I can give to the game is it has to be online only. There's no way to play just single player, so if you don't have an internet connection, it literally will not let you in the game. Like, it just brings you back to the main menu, which does suck. So I hope in the future they do implement some way of being able to play single player only, because I know most people have internet connections, but there are people that don't, so it's kind of a shame. There is absolutely no way to play this game 100% single player. You do have to have an online connection, and again, even with my online connection, I did have a few disconnects from time to time. I'd say maybe once per session, but it's still rare enough to where it's not a huge hindrance, but it is something to note, and it can become a pretty big annoyance. Other than the mass events, there are other versus type game modes like trick contests, which are fun for multiplayer challenges against real players. So I like that they implemented a lot of these features so you don't have to necessarily only go against NPCs or just with your friends. You can go against real players from time to time whenever you want, just by going to the hub world. And moving on to the map is ginormous. It is huge. Loads of events for literally hours of content. I'm probably about 35 hours into the game with mine here, and I don't think I'm anywhere near the end of it. And again, even if you finish all the events around, there's still hundreds of extra achievements to go through and find throughout the map. So they have the free roam options like I stated before, and they also added fast travel for it. It's very easy, and there is no loading time in between flying from one section of the map to the other to get to an event faster. So I find that really cool because, again, they gave you these options to make the traveling in free roam insanely fun and without any real hiccups or loading times at all. But yet they still give us the opportunity to fast travel to each event, which is insane. So it's really cool. So if you're just, again, if you're just in there to look at events and go from one to the other, you can fast travel to them without any issue, which is pretty awesome. Outside of the events, there is loads of collectibles to find as well, including different spots like just special events that show a little cutscene and give you a little tidbit of information based off real world areas, which is really cool. And then you also have different areas you can find that give you special equipment that you otherwise would not find within the game. So definitely exploring is worth it, and you do get XP for it as well towards your career and your stats. So it gives you a huge incentive just to kind of fly around and mess around in the mountain to find different places and things to find. They do have a dedicated hub area in the map as well for social aspects, so you can literally walk around and talk to different real humans who are there. They also have an area for learning new tricks, which is basically just like a training scenario, but it's really actually useful. I used it quite a bit because there's a lot of tricks I didn't even know I could perform until going in there. And they also have a shop, of course, so you can buy different cosmetics for your character. But the only real downside of that is a lot of the customizations for your character are put behind a paywall, which I kind of was like, not a huge fan of that, especially for a $60 game. But a lot of the stuff you can also purchase just with in-game currency that you rank up through just playing matches, which is really cool. And a lot of the cosmetics are pretty unique, so I gotta hand them for that. And the store does update daily, so it does give you an incentive to come back and check to see what is available. But again, just wish a lot of it wasn't behind a paywall. And the other big downside is there's no way to customize, like I stated, the equipment. This only is customizing for your character, which is cool. I'm glad they have that, but I do wish they would have added some type of skin or whatever for the different equipment so that you don't have to worry about swapping out equipment for something that's better stat-wise but doesn't look as cool, if that makes any sense. They also have, of course, silly accessories and these stupid emotes like in Fortnite. Not that I'll ever use those, but they're there if you want to spend money on them. The other really cool thing, which I noticed right away, is when looking at the map, you can literally see hundreds, if not thousands of players roaming around on the mountains and in the deserts just by roaming around the map or looking around it. And it's just crazy how that's set up in real time. And then, of course, while you're just free roaming around, you can literally see people in events just racing by or flying over you or stuck and hanging out and just dancing or whatever. They're live people around the mountain. Now, that being said, 90% of them are NPCs, or they could even just be ghosts from other players at some point. They're not all actual real humans, because that would be impossible to have thousands of players in one server like that. But it still gives you a feel that you're not alone, and it does feel like a community. So I have to hand them for that, for doing that. But I really wish it would have been more implemented to where you could see real humans while you're just free roaming. And that being said, you can run into real people. But in my experience, I've only ran like maybe 5 real people while on the mountain. The only real place you're going to run into real people is if you go to a mass event or if you just go to the hub world. And the biggest differentiator between the NPCs and the humans to know which one is which, the human players will have a orange star above their head showing their progress level, or essentially how many stars they have based on how many events they've completed or how many special events and stuff and collectibles they've gotten throughout their time in the game. And every single time I run into a human, it made me feel terrible for how little my star count is compared to them. The last part we're going to get into is the story, and it's sad to say, but there really is not a story in the game, and it's not really the highlight of the main campaign at all. There is technically a story, in quote unquote, and it does have some cutscenes sprinkled in from here and there, and they have tried to add some characters with some lighthearted jokes and whatever to get you into the game. But trust me, that you can completely skip them, and you are not going to remember the story like the next day you play. It's just there to kind of create a sense of why this is happening and why everything is around the world, but it doesn't need to be there. It's just there. But I gotta give them credit where credit is due, in that at least the characters are interesting and they are fun to listen to in the cutscenes, and they're not cringe or just straight up boring, because I have played games where they try too hard and it just ends up being just, again, cringeworthy and not fun experience to watch or listen to. But thankfully that's not the case here. It's just, they don't even really need the story. It's just there. So that essentially is my thoughts and opinions on Riders Republic. What do you guys think of the game? Have you tried it? Are you playing it? Are you enjoying it? Or is this your first ever time hearing about it from this video? And if that's the case, that's amazing. And I do hope you enjoy it and try it out from this video. I'll have a link in the description below if you want to get it from Ubisoft's site as well. I am no way in any shape or form affiliated with them or sponsored in any way. I just love this game and wanted to get the success and recognition it deserves, because I would love to see updates for it in the future. But that being said, that is my full review and overview of Riders Republic. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like, share your support as always. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out.